Back in your life, talking kickball on a Friday. Me and good pal Ryan Pendry did not have synchronized schedules this week. He's too busy giving guys rub and tugs at Massage Envy to have time to do a pirate pod with me. So I've gotten a lot of requests to do one. I've gotten a million messages asking for my takes. I heard the podcast on Tuesday this week was spicy. I tried to listen to it. Audio, more or less, unlistenable. Not my problem. I've moved on. So I'm going to talk just the spicy things for the most part. Hopefully, bittersweet and quick episode here. That means it's going to go long. But I am hoping to have it done in 45 or less. And 30 would be awesome. So diving into the big thing. Lots of discourse this week over the rankings, over the board's rankings. And their decision to make Global the 3 seed, Free State being the 9 seed, Empire I believe seeded at 27 when just speaking off the top of my brain for now, I believe Empire smoked both the 26th. I think they smoked the 25 seed who smoked the 26 seed or something like that. Like there's situations where it looks like the board made some people would say objectively wrong errors. I'm not going to say that every error was objectively wrong, but I think a couple of them are objectively wrong. And so we'll talk about that and get my opinion. The big one, Global at 3. And I say big one, obviously, just because at the end of the day, the cup is going to be the priority. So Global at 3. Lots of people asking my takes, lots of people giving their takes. I mean, I've probably had 25, 30 discussions over this, since Sunday evening, and more or less Monday, Tuesday. I've told just about everybody the same thing. I think that there is no objectively correct way to seed 3 through 6. I don't think that the way the schedules played out, the way our league works, and the way the results played out, there's an objectively correct way to rank those 4 teams. I think there's probably more right ways than wrong, and there's probably things that most people would agree with more than others. But my take, what I would say, comes down to this. I had this conversation with somebody last night. And this is actually a really good example, I think. If you watch college football, I think this will really be one of the greatest examples you ever see if you've watched, or a college football fan have always watched college football. The BCS would not have Global at number 3. They would probably have them at 5 or 6. But the college football playoff, I think, would have Global at 3. And because of that thinking, and I'll explain my thinking here in a second, I really don't think this is where I would have a qualm with what the board did. Do I think it's a good look? 3 of the board members are on the team that somehow ended up getting the lucky draw of options and getting the seed that does realistically give you life. I think it's a bad look. I think it's an unfortunate coincidence. I don't know if I would say that's a coincidence. I think that given that there's a rightful path for Global to be 3, I think they're always going to be 3. And that is what it is. But I would say my real take comes down to this. And I've told this to the captains of the people on these teams as the other. Obviously, Global has the worst loss ever. Not worst loss ever. But they have a bad loss to Free State. Not only was it just to a team that was preseason ranked 16, but it's a team they lost to by 8. And yes, they were missing people. And I've talked about this on here numerous times. When I did my tier list, it's like nobody who's ever won the league has ever lost to a team that bad. Or that lowly ranked, preseason ranked. And yes, now mind you, Free State has somehow ended up as the number 9 seed. Is that deserved? Yeah, I would say it's deserved, but I don't think they're better than Sacred Sword, and I don't think there's a bit of evidence to provide that. What I would say is they have one mutual opponent where they have to me, if I was breaking that tie, if I considered them tied, which I can't imagine the board did not consider them tied. If I ever had to consider those 2 teams tied, I would look, they have one mutual opponent where they have different results, and it's Sacred Sword beat us, Free State lost to us. Would I say that Sacred Sword should have beaten us? No, we had them legitimately dead to rights, and we absolutely fucking sold the bet. I mean, you can go back and watch the film. If Haley would have been playing Rover where I told her to play Rover and would have caught the ball, we probably would have run ruled them. And it's not even a matter of like, are we good enough to run rule them? No, but it's like the way that game was playing out and the amount of time that was being taken, it's like we would have had them at one run when we had 14 runs, and we would have been at like 54 minutes. So yeah, it's interesting. And so my take is that I think that was a pretty bad. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if it's explained on the podcast, but I'm not exactly sure how they got to Free State at 9. But given that they've gotten there, then it maybe does make Global's loss to them a little bit more realistic, which then plays into the, like, is it a coincidence that Free State now is getting the 9 and makes the Global loss look better? Who knows? But my real take comes down to, in the past 2 weeks, Global played the team ranked 4th and the team now ranked 6th, LSF and Invictus Fitness. And in those games, beat them both more or less wire to wire. I think they were tied after the first inning with Invictus and then won from there. But it's like the LSF game wasn't close. They spank cityed them. And for me, that's kind of where I lean towards. Like, I think the college football playoff would have Global at 3 because the recent results obviously are always going to play into effect. But even more so, it's like they're in this tie with these teams, and the tie being Redlegs, Global, Invictus, and LSF. They're in this 4-way tie. And obviously there's an elephant in the room forfeit we'll talk about in a second. But we're in this tie of these teams have like all played each other, for the most part. But mind you, Global and Redlegs did not have a chance to play this season, which is unfortunate. And my take would be this. I think you have a team who Spank City'd 2 out of the 3 teams, and Spank City'd the team that, and like if you look, and I don't think it's fair to say that Global would 100% lose to Redlegs. I would not say that statement. Do I think they would lose, that Redlegs would lose to Global? Yes, I do, but I think Redlegs could also beat Global. But my take would be, I know it's unfair to base off what happened in the first couple weeks of the season, but Redlegs got Spank City'd by Invictus Fitness. And so I think it's fair to say objectively that Invictus is better than Redlegs. And I don't think anyone has a problem with the fact that Invictus is 4 over Redlegs at 5. So I would assume they wouldn't have that same problem if Invictus was 3 and Redlegs were 4. So given that being a factual, I would assume that's a factual statement, actually. I feel very confident that's a fact. So given that statement, then if you can say, like, does anyone think that Global is not better than Invictus? And so after you watch that game and you see how it played out, and I don't think there's a world where you say no. And so yes, the rankings are not just about who's better because, we play a season for a reason and it should be based off the season, but it's like, it's easy for me to just say, hey, you know what, like Free State Day was a fluke. Like it was a bad day in the office. And yes, they were missing people. And that's the point of us having subjective seedings now and subjective rankings, is that we can use our brains. And like, I understand the brains aren't always going to work in favor of everyone's team. I understand that 3 board members are on one team. But yeah, that would kind of be my stance, is that I think the unfortunate reality is that like the people who are obviously the most upset about the situation are Invictus, Redlegs, and LSF. But 2 out of those 3 teams in the past 2 weeks had a chance to objectively put Global at 6. If either of them had won, Global would be at 6. And so they didn't. And for me, that to me kind of wipes out their ability to complain about the situation. Again, do I think the current 1 through 6 is correct? Like, no, I don't think there's an objectively correct option, but I don't think it's wrong. And that would be kind of where I stand on that situation. What I would say as well, obviously, like, I have good friends on Redlegs. And so my take would be this, is, hindsight's 2020. And I think the board did a pretty good job, for the most part, accommodating marquee matchups. I do think, I find it very interesting they set Sacred to get the doors blasted off them by Johnny's last week, and then also put Free State ahead of them after Free State barely beat a team, or I guess they confidently beat them, but it's like they beat a team that Sacred also beat. And so it's like, I find it very interesting that Sacred put behind after that decision was made, because if you were going to say that a Free State win would leapfrog all these teams for them and like the metaphorical rankings, then you should have given Sacred Sword that game. Like, you shouldn't have let Free State jump a team that like they haven't played, that also beat the team that they beat. That to me just doesn't make any sense. But my point being here is that Redlegs very publicly, very loudly, and very adamantly wanted Post House last week. And the reasoning, in reality, was that they wanted a chance to have the 2 seed. Because if they would have won that game, they would have created a 5-way tie where they would have beaten LSF, who beat Post House, and they also would have beaten Post House, who beat Global and Invictus Fitness just recently. They would have been the benefactors of recency bias, and they would have gotten the 2 seed. And so, my honest take on that, and mind you, I don't think the board can use this as a defense, because I don't think the board has not operated in this space where I would recommend them to operate in the future. But if I was the board, I would have operated in this space and said, hey, we gave you the matchup you wanted, and you wanted the chance for the 2 seed. You could have played Global last week, and if you would have beaten Global, you would have been guaranteed the 3 seed. You chose not to. You wanted to leapfrog, you wanted to reach for the stars and take the 2 seed. You had the opportunity, you went to extra innings in that opportunity, and you fell short. It was unfortunate. They had opportunities to win the game. They didn't take them. They had opportunities not to lose the game. They didn't take advantage of them. I would say that I would feel comfortable if I was the person who seeded Global 3. And I would say I probably would have seeded Global 3. That doesn't mean it's correct, but that's probably me saying I probably would have seeded Global 3. But given all this, is Redlegs, if they wanted 3 seed that bad, they would have asked for Global, which, you could have objectively viewed as the easier opponent. Are they easier than Post House? I don't know. On Global's best day, I would say no. I think on Global's best day, they're the second best team in the league. But my take is that you asked for Post House, you got Post House, and you didn't win the game. And so from there, I don't really think you can then start being like, well, we didn't get a chance to play Global, like this, that, and the other. It's like, well, Global's who you're in the 4-way tie with. If you wanted to make sure you came out of the 4-way tie in a good spot, you should have probably made sure you played everyone. Because if everybody had played everybody in the 4-way tie, I'm pretty sure the KVKL has rule breakers, or tiebreakers, sorry, that, come into play of counting of the mutual results between all the teams, how many runs were scored against, how many runs were scored for, and this, that, and the other. And they could have done that. But no, Redlegs, I don't think Redlegs made the wrong choice. Maybe for some personal reasons I won't speak of, Redlegs made the wrong choice. But I don't think Redlegs shooting for the 2 seed was a bad idea by any means. I mean, the 2 seed's almost a guaranteed cakewalk to the semifinal, because they would have, if memory serves, they would have played Honey Badgers again, a team they beat pretty easily. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure they beat them pretty easily. Or they would have played JDE or something. It's like you would have played a team that you would have won. And so for me, I don't think shooting for the 2 seed was a problem. But the problem is you're now having this consequence where you can't say that you're better than Global. You have absolutely no evidence that you're better than Global. You haven't beaten anyone that they lost to, and you've lost the teams they beat. And so that to me is kind of my end-all take on the whole Global situation. Again, I think my take would be is I don't think you should have 3 board members from one team. Especially, honestly, I would say 2. Especially a team at the top of the league. I really just think it's like, I don't think that that the first responders and ball beavers and late fees are having the same arguments over seeds that we're going to have at the top of the league. And that's perfectly fine. But I don't think, the facts of the matter are it is more competitive at the top of the league than the bottom of the league or in the middle of the league. And so you putting yourselves in these situations where consistently, there's going to be issues, there's going to be tight calls, there's going to be tight rankings. You're putting yourselves in the situation that you're asking to be punched in the face. And every time we get punched in the face. And then it's like, I don't know why everyone says we're biased, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, again, I'll say, I don't think that the bias is inherent. I think it's just like it's natural. It's like natural like life bias, and like I told this to Liz Carr the other day before they even did the rankings, but it's like you know I don't think Liz Carr goes in there and is saying, oh hey, like I think these guys need to be above these guys, but it's like maybe she had a good talk with Brooks from Ringers a couple weeks ago. And because of that, like she's just naturally gonna like Brooks more, and naturally like the Ringers more. And so she's gonna watch a Ringers game and she's gonna watch an Empire game. And I'm just using two teams without even looking at the rankings. But it's like she's gonna watch an Empire game or watch a Ringers game. And maybe they haven't played each other, but she watched Ringers and she watched Empire, and she's gonna think the Ringers look better than Empire did because she likes Brooks more. And that happens. Like that is like it happens to me. It happens to everybody. But the key is like when you have 9 people that are all experiencing different things, the hope is that you come out to a median that is about expected. Because it's like, you look, they probably got about 31, 32 of the rankings correct. Like, for me, that's a good number. That 90% is a good number. And so I don't really have a problem with, where we netted out there. But that would just kind of be my take. Because I do think that something needs to happen in regards to 3 board members on one team. And so, yeah, hopefully, there's rumors there'll be resolutions there, but last year, 6 of the 9 board members told people publicly to join the board, and then none of them left. So who knows? I do want to talk about Sacred Sword Free State. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And like, what my real problem is that it's like, I wouldn't expect the charity kickball board to like retain the same metrics, from 1 through 36. And honestly, I don't know if it would be even smart to retain the same metrics, because as you fall further down the league, the parity is going to rise, and it's like you'll have teams that will smoke a team and then lose to a team that got smoked by the team they beat, and like smoked, and it's like it's like that stuff happens, so it's harder to use that same logic. But I just don't quite understand how Free State got put behind or got put ahead of Sacred Sword. I don't know if I would ever even understand the logic in quantum jumps that would have to be had to get there. But they did it, and it is what it is. But to me, it just doesn't really make any sense. And what I find funny, and like, mind you, I wanted the 15th seed. My team is right where we want to be. We will play in the Twain, assuming we don't lose to R-Bar this week. We will play teams we've already played, more than likely. And mind you, it'll be the two of the teams we lost to. Or mind you, we're actually going to play like teams we lost to the rest of the season. After we play R-Bar, we'll play Post House, who we got smoked by, and we'll get smoked by again. I don't care. I'm going to roll over and die. I'm not going to try in that game. It's dumb to try. They're going to smoke us. But then it's like we'll probably play Free State or Sacred Sword, or we'd probably play Sacred Sword, and then it's like then we'd probably play the Tropics, and it's like you're giving me 2 games against teams we lost to by a combined 4 runs, and I would argue we should have won both those games. So yeah, I like where my team's seated. But what I think is funny is that like you look where Free State is, and it's like my team beat Free State by multiple runs. And it's one of those things where it's like I don't want the respect from that by any means. I am right where I wanted to be, but I do find it very interesting that like again, like if you're using these same metrics and want to put Free State at 9 and Global at 3 because their loss was the number 9, like that's fine. But it's like in that same quantum leap, you probably have to put my team at like 11 or 12, because it's like 1, we had the hardest strength of schedule, and 2, it's like if you eliminate the Redlegs and Post House game, which like mind you, again, they would have beaten us in any world, but it's like 1, the Redlegs game, I didn't go, I had to work, and I just told the team to go have fun and drink and have fun, and that's exactly what they did, and they got fucking the doors blasted off them. But it's like if we wanted to try in either of those games, we probably would not have gotten run ruled. Like we would have lost by 10, 15, but it's like we would not have gotten run ruled. It's like all of our fucking stats and metrics are way off because of it, and that's perfectly fine. But it's like my team is if you're putting Free State at 9, my team is probably 12. And for me, I don't think Free State's 9, and I don't think my team is 12. And so that's why for me it just like to each their own. Again, I have no complaints. I'm very happy with where my team's seated, but I just think that they changed up their logic and quantum physics leaps when they were putting the standings together. And then also you got to talk about Empire, and like the Empire situation is really interesting. And I'm actually I'm gonna pull this up so I get this right, so I make sure that I'm not wrong about what I'm saying here. Just 1 second here. Okay, so Empire smoked Screamers, who smoked Soda Jerks, and both of those teams are ranked ahead of them. And so again, I don't know exactly, and I just know that everyone has said that this is really bad. So that's why I'm going to talk about it. It's like these teams, like at that part of the again, like the parody's wild, like teams will lose people behind them, this or the other. But it's like to me that like just doesn't make sense how you would ever get there and ever rank this team behind the other team. And like it is what it is. But again, obviously it's interesting to note Derek Davis on the board, Soda Jerk's captain. And so I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think the board is rigging anything, but it's just interesting. So yeah, that's my thing. And then also too, Love Garden at 13 is really interesting to me because it's like I know they talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but it's like they had the hardest strength of schedule, and mind you, they lost Skyler before the season, which is what it is, and that's a really bad loss for them. But it's like, dude, like you should not be judging teams by their loss caliber to a team way better than them. You can give a team credit for playing close. Like, if Sacred Sword had played Johnny's close, like they deserve credit for that. But the fact they got the door, like, dude, the teams at the top of the league, the top 6, I'll confidently say 6, but I would honestly kind of remove LSF from that a little bit because I do think they're like kind of a little step down now. Those teams at the top of the league are so much better than the other teams. Like, so much better. And if they decide to have a good day on a day that one of the teams, even like 7 through 20, decide to have an average day, they'll probably get run ruled. Unless the top team decides to take the breaks off, which a lot of them do. Like, the same mentality I take going into the Post House game this weekend and when we played them, in late June, is the same mentality they're taking. They know they're going to win this game. Are they going to go out and, try and get reps and try for the first 2 innings? Sure. But they know they're going to win it. There is no world that my team beats them, and they know this. They know that. And so it's one of those things where it's like if Love Garden goes out and like knows they're like they can't stop the bunt as well because they don't have Skyler and they have Tyler playing third base for the most part. It's like they know they're going to lose to Invictus. They might hope that something goes well for them, but it's like they know they're going to lose that game. They know they're going to lose the fucking Redlegs. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, to me, I don't think you should just be punishing them because they got smoked by the top teams. It's like they almost beat Honey Badger. A very, very, very like heavily contested, debated ref situation in the Honey Badgers game. And then you look at they beat Shirt Factory, and it's like, dude, like no one else is doing that. Like nobody else is like Shirt Factory's worst loss is Love Garden, and it's like if you put Love Garden at 8. Which is probably close, 8 or 9, which is probably where they should be. It's like they don't have a single loss to anyone behind them. I guess did they maybe lose to Toe Pokes? I can't remember now. They might have lost Toe Pokes. They might have won Toe Pokes. I don't know. But it's like it's one of those situations where it's like these teams are playing at like against all the top teams and getting smoked because maybe they've had a little bit of a fall off. They don't deserve to be in the top 6 anymore. But it's like that doesn't mean they're fucking 13, and it doesn't mean that at all. And so yeah. That is my take on that. But that's ball. Last rankings thing. I just think it's really funny because, like, honestly, I would have told you a week ago that I thought Cougar didn't take his RPI seriously. That, like, he knew that, like, it was ass and that it was just, like, really plain numbers that don't really matter because of we have subjective scheduling now. But no, he actually takes it really seriously, which I thought was interesting because he like on the podcast was like very adamant that my team was underseeded. And like spouting off all of our stats, and he was saying somebody else was like way overseeded or underseeded because their strength of schedule. And it's like I did not realize he took that seriously, so that was very interesting for me. Last other thing I want to talk about is interference. The interference situation is so interesting, and since this last Pirate Pod I did, I think I had the whole like post game thing with D-holes, which was really interesting, and then funny to see that Max fucking gypped my team out of a fucking run, so none of that even mattered. But yeah, no, the interference stuff is really interesting, and I don't want to say that like someone's right, someone's wrong all the time, and say the other, but like to me, I think what the real problem is, and we see arguments about it almost every week now, every game under film, like this didn't call. It's like the board left interpretation when, in my opinion, they should not have. And so here's my take on, and this is how I've honestly kind of gone about reffing games, but just trying to be a little bit more subjective because the rules don't actually say this. But it's like, if you're running in fair territory at the interference line, you should be out. If you take one step that is not in foul territory, completely in foul, not on the line is in fair territory. If you take a complete step that is not completely in foul territory past the 8-foot line, you should be out. And if you are at first base and you in any capacity go over the line and reach into foul territory, when a runner is past the 8-foot line, they should be safe. And my takes, and I had a good talk with Seth about this earlier in the week. I would say that I think the line should be moved to 10 feet. I am anti-collision, and I know I've talked about that on here a million times. I don't need to continue, but it's like, I will say, we are all people who have normal jobs. I'm assuming 99% or higher of KVKL is employed. So we all have day jobs. And we can't have people getting their heads cut open or getting wiped the fuck out and then having to show up to work on Monday and they're in fucking cast. And yes, injuries happen, but it's like collisions are 100% preventable. And what I find to be interesting, and I told this to Seth, I was like, I've played first base for years. I have never once been called for first base encroachment, ever. I've never once been called for first base encroachment because I don't do it. It's like, if the throw for my teammate is bad, I come off the base to try and stop it, or I have to let it go. And it's like, you have to avoid avoiding collisions should be priority number one. And that's why, people want to get rid of the rule and say the rule's wrong. It's like, the rule is in place to prevent collisions. That is the reason behind the rule. And if every first baseman stays in fair territory and every runner stays in foul territory, we will never have collisions, ever. That is a fact. That is not an opinion. That is an objective fact. And so that's why I think it should be reffed that way. And that's why I think the rule should be written that way. If you're in fair territory, you are out. If you're in foul territory, as a defender, they are safe. It is that simple. And I don't know. I just really hope that's what the board goes with, because anything else is just too much subjectiveness and too much ref to ref. Everyone has a different opinion. Did it impact the play? Blah, blah. It's like, get the fucking foul. Like, stop running through the white bag out. Called it out this week. Run through the white bag, you're out. There's no reason to be running in fair territory. If you, this is an objective fact, and I think I did talk about this a little bit on the last Pirate Pod. It's like, if you're running in foul territory or in fair territory as a kicker anywhere near that 8-foot line, you fucked up your kick. You're not kicking correctly, or you fucked up your kick. And mind you, even the best kickers fuck up their kicks sometimes. But it's like, you're kicking incorrectly. Like, you should not be landing that far in fair territory post-kicking that you're also, running in fair territory that far into the base. It's like, it is really that simple. And that's why, I said it this past week, I reffed Free State versus Rickrollers, and there was calls that both teams wanted to argue. But it's like, my take is, again, sometimes you can't get an out without colliding with someone. That means that player is going to be safe. If you can't get the out without running into the offensive player or colliding with the offensive player, that means that you can't get the out. That doesn't mean get the out and collide with them. That means you cannot get the out. And that is where I think there's a massive disconnect with people. That's where I think some of those injuries, happen. And the same thing goes the other way. If you can't, get to second base without colliding with someone, it's like, if they don't have the ball, you need to just avoid them and ask for an interference call. And I get that some people aren't always paying attention, which really sucks. But refs need to pay attention more. And I would say too, there was a play where Malloy was running to second base, was trying to sneak to second base, and Missy was standing in the base path. And I called that interference. I would say it's interference still to this day. Rick was at ref. He disagreed, and we moved on. But my take was, she was standing in the base path without the ball. She got the ball thrown to her while she was in the base path, and Malloy was about 2 or 3 steps away. Malloy is fast as fuck. 2 or 3 steps is less than a second. And so, for me, she was not avoiding a collision. She left Malloy no path to the base without going through her. And did Malloy go through her? Yes, he did. Did he get tagged out in the process? Yes, he did. Should he have gone through her? No. And that's my answer. Malloy should have come to a stop and been like, she is in my base path. And he should have been deemed second base safely. That is where I would net out on that situation 10 times out of 10. I would say, due to the collision and due to the fact he kind of created the collision when he could have avoided it. I'm not going to lose sleep over the fact that it wasn't called interference. But yeah, that's kind of my take on that. Is that like I really think people just you got to get out of the way. If you can't get the out, If you can't get the out, you need to allow the runner to get there safe. Like it's like avoiding collisions is number one priority. In the first base, it's like that is really my stance on that. So yeah, I don't really have much more on that. Obviously, if anyone has takes on that, feel free to draw. It sucks because like sometimes people are like, oh, we should have discussions, and then people like throw a hissy when other people counter them back. But that's my honest take. Is like stop if someone does not have a safe path does not have a clear path, not a safe clear path to the base. They are deemed safe in my opinion, and yeah, that's my take. And last up, I'll just give kind of my take on each trophy and who I think is going to win it. Okay, so talking champions for each 4 trophies. I'll just start with the cup. I think it's going to be Johnny's again. And honestly, like, I mean, I feel like I'm about as open and honest as it gets when it comes to full season transparency. It's like, you know, a couple weeks ago I ref Post House Johnny's. And mind you, Post House was missing some people. I think Richard was gone. Dakota, I think, still recovering from injury. But Johnny's was missing Shane, which is like a massive loss for them. And like I don't know the guy that played third base for Johnny's in that game by any means. And he wasn't bad also by any means. But he also wasn't good. And he wasn't Shane. And to me, it felt like a situation where pretty quickly, like, I would have figured that Post House would realize that and try and take advantage of it, and they really didn't. And, like, Post House put themselves in a good position a lot in that game, and then, like, every single time did not capitalize on it. And I don't know, like, to me, it kind of proves what I've said, and I think I said in my tier list that I dropped a couple weeks ago. It's like some of these teams, I think Johnny's almost has done what KTZ did forever, where it's like people get in their own heads and overthink things, and they come up to kick and they collapse and don't do what they're asked, or can't do what they're asked, or can't do something they're normally good at, or trying to do too much. And it's like I think Johnny's has now built that because like the reality of the situation is they should have been able to win that game. They were in position to win that game a lot of times. They had bases loaded, like no outs, didn't score. And it's like, what it's come down to for me is that I don't think any of these teams have figured out how to beat Johnny's and also execute beating Johnny's. And it's like sometimes, okay, they figured out how to beat them and they can't execute. And sometimes they're executing really well, but they don't actually know what they're doing to beat them. And they did some things on defense that I disagree with as well. But that's not my team. They can do whatever they want. And so you watch the film on, you know, their Johnny's games against Invictus, and obviously we're missing Michael. It's like I felt like Invictus did a good job of taking advantage of the fact that Michael was gone, but obviously he won't be gone next time they play. And I think it's a very safe assumption that Invictus will not beat Johnny's. Now they're going to meet in the semifinal, which means we're going to have a new championship game for the first time in 4 years, maybe. So that'll be fun. That'll be cool. Excited for that. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just don't think any of these teams have figured it out. And then so if you look at the actual bracket, it's going to be Global or Post House more than likely that gets to swing at Johnny's in the championship game. I think it'll be Global. I think Global should have won the first time they played Post House. Like, I'm not going to sit here and attack people for not playing good and not being good. But Post House figured out in that game how they needed to score runs and where the weak points were on Global. I think since then, Global has made some holistic changes. I think Chance has gotten a little bit more comfortable at pitcher. I still wouldn't be playing him at pitcher, but he's gotten more comfortable at pitcher, which I think has helped them. And then I think my second level take there would be is that I think more than likely what it comes down to for me is that it's like I'm a firm believer in like if a team blows a lead to another team, like the other team deserved it. They came back, but it's like the Global could have ran away with that game. Like they could have, and I'm not sure that Post House would ever do that to Global. And like, you know, without looking back at the past results, like I don't remember what the last results were. I think Global beat them last year. And I don't know. It's just to me, I don't see a world where like Post House is ever up like 6-7 runs on Global. I could be wrong. Maybe I will be wrong. Who knows? But to me, it feels like Global is the better team there when they're playing well. Will Marcus be able to play? Who knows? Will they kick well? Who knows? Will
they not make a ton of mistakes. Who knows? But yeah, I feel pretty good that Global's going to get their shot into the championship game, which will then like kind of nullify some of the hate towards the rankings. And I think what sucks is like I would imagine the board will be like, oh look, Global's in the championship game. Like we told you all, but like that is not sufficient evidence for them because the Global does have an easier path to the championship game now than they would have had it in the other one. But all that to be said, if Global wins the league, I do think that kind of shuts up the whole hysteria about everything. So that's my take on the Cup side. I really don't see anyone getting upset. Like I think on my bracket, I have 1 through 8 in the quarterfinals. I just don't see it. I will say actually, yeah, no. I have 1 through 8, and I don't expect that to change. Looking over on the plate side, I think my game against Arbar is probably like I would say in my honest opinion, I think my game against Arbar is going to probably decide who wins the plate. I think Arbar is better than everyone. They'll play quick. Like Jazz House, I could see really giving them problems. Especially I don't know what's going on with Isaac's hamstring. All respect to the guy. I hope it's not healed yet because I would love to play them without him. But I don't know what's going on there. If he's back and healthy, I don't think anyone on the plate besides D-Holes and Jazz House will really give them a close game even. Like I could see them, they probably run rule Ball Beavers or Ghosts. I could see them run ruling the Screamers, LFK Rays. I don't think they would run rule Cali Fusion, but I think they'd beat them pretty confidently. So yeah, we'll see. The D-Holes on the top side, assuming they lose to Harpies, I think D-Holes could be live to beat Harpies, but I guess we'll have to see what version of the D-Holes we get. I would say the winner-loser of that game is also probably in a pretty similar situation. I think Woost, who they will run into in the semifinals on their side, I do think Woost is probably like the most live team outside of seed 17 and 18 to win the plate. Obviously, hope my boy Ben, JB Cali Fusion wins it, but I think Jazz House is going to be a really tough game for them. And what I think, too, historically, and then like even just in general, like you look like Cali Fusion's going to have a really hard game against Jazz House. And then they're going to have to go play R-Bar. Whereas R-Bar is going to probably have a cakewalk against the script. It's like, when you're playing a tough game, like look at Young Spine. They played us last year. We went 11, 12 innings, and like they're in a dogfight, and they got mollywop, Spank City dumped on by Rick Rollers. And I wouldn't say Rick Rollers are better than them, or at least weren't last year. And I think Young Spine might have beaten them when they played. So that's one of those things to think about. So I have R-Bar winning the plate, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'll say this. I think R-Bar is making the championship game. What happens from there? Who knows? Looking over at the Twain, lots of interesting matchups there. Like, Harpies obviously kind of got dropped off by Free State a couple weeks ago. I think that game might be a little bit closer this time around. Love Garden, I think, unfortunate draw against Topok, because I do think Topok's have a really high ceiling here in the Twain as well. But I think Love Garden will beat them there. I think Love Garden from there takes the Twain. Like, I'm really, like, not. I think Topok's are genuinely, like, their most likely chance to lose. That would just be my honest opinion, is that the Topokes have the best chance to beat Love Garden, and if they don't, they probably win the Twain. Obviously, like, my team's matchup would be against Sacred Sword and the Rick Rollers or Tropics. I don't know. It's like my take is kind of like either we're going to win or lose. Like, this is really dumb when you say it out loud, but it's like we're either going to win or we're going to lose. And, like, if my team shows up to play well and, like, we don't make a bunch of mistakes, like, I do think that we're good enough to beat all these teams. Like, if you look at the expected runs in the Sacred Sword loss and the Tropics loss, it's like we had those teams in such bad positions, and then people just went up and like did not execute. And that's ball. That's adult sports. We're not professionals. I don't really expect anything else. So it is what it is there. But I don't know. I do think my team is more than good enough to make a run here. But we'll see. We'll see what version of us shows up, and we'll see if we get past R-Bar first. But I'm confident in that one. The boot, I have First Responders, Rockets, Ghosts, and late fees. I think the Ghosts take it. I think First Responders will beat the Rockets. And then I think they'll fall to the Ghosts. I think First Responders just lost to the Ghosts. So to me, it feels like a really good spot for the Ghosts to get their lick back. Yeah, and that's really all the takes I have on that stuff. I just wanted to address my takes on the seeding thing. Might take some interference. If anyone else has any other questions, let me know. One other guest take I would have, that I'm really kind of curious about how they handle is one, it might rain on Sunday. Two, is just in general like the reffing stuff. Like I do feel like I really like what they've done with the cross field reffing in regular season, and it's basically unsustainable in the playoffs. But I think I would like to see the field rearrangement in the future. Like honestly, I probably should have said something to Liz or Clint or someone before, because it's like that would have been really really easy to solve, because they're just plug and playing. For those that don't know, they're just plug and playing the same schedule every year. Like if you knew what your seed was, like you could have figured out what your schedule was already. It's the same schedule every year. Every team, like the same games are played in the same field every year. And so I feel like since the way the league's kind of trending, is like I do think we could have, made some better reffing matchups, for lack of a better term. And again, like I'm not a believer that better teams are better at reffing than like bad teams or anything like that. But like it is a trend. Like the lower the team, normally the lower the quality of the ref. There's some good refs on bottom tier teams, 100%. But there's also the worst refs down there as well. So I don't know. And I would say even too, more than that, just like understanding the rules, understanding the high level of kickball. Like it's to a point I don't even fall. Like if I'm gonna get number 33 versus number 35 reffing my game, like I'm not going to expect like them to understand and get every call right in a close game when they're not playing like the same style or type of kickball at all. That's like an unreasonable expectation. So yeah, that's my take on that. Who knows? Who cares? I will get this uploaded to Marcus's YouTube. Who knows how long that will take, and then we'll be balling from there. Good luck, everybody.